Mira Lyle loved the library. She loved its quiet, dusty soul. She knew every whisper of its old wooden floors and the way the afternoon light painted stripes across the worn carpets. This place was her sanctuary, a fortress built of paper and ink, where the world outside could be held at bay by the simple act of turning a page. She was its careful guardian, a woman who moved with a gentle precision, her life ordered by the Dewey Decimal System. The library was a world of known things, of stories that had a beginning, a middle, and a definitive, unchanging end. It was safe, it was predictable, and that was how she liked it. On a Tuesday afternoon, as rain drummed a soft, relentless rhythm against the tall arched windows, a box arrived. It was plain cardboard, sealed with old yellowed tape, and bore the name of a donor who had passed away years ago. Curiosity, a gentle hum beneath her usual calm, prodded her. Alone in the hushed quiet of the acquisitions room, she sliced the tape. Inside, nestled in brown tissue paper, were a dozen thin, pale books. They had no titles on their spines, no markings at all. Mira lifted one out. The cover was a blank, faded cream color, cool and smooth beneath her fingertips. It felt strangely light, as if its pages held very little. She opened it. There was no title page, no author's name, no publisher's mark. There was only a date, written in simple, neat block letters. October 12th, 2025. That was tomorrow. Beneath the date, a single, peculiar sentence was printed. It read, "At 2:15 p.m., a stray calico cat will leap onto Mrs. Henley's lap, spilling her Earl Grey tea upon the floor." Mira let a small, amused smile touch her lips. What an odd little book. It felt like a piece of a forgotten play, or perhaps a student's strange art project. She tucked the curious little volume onto a corner of her desk, intending to ask her colleagues about it later. The day passed in its usual comforting rhythm of stamping due dates and recommending novels. The next day, Mrs. Henley, a library regular with a fondness for historical romances and a thermos of tea, settled into her favorite armchair by the window. At precisely 2:15 p.m., a calico cat, a stray Mira had never seen before, darted in through the propped open door. It made a beeline for the elderly woman, leaped gracefully onto her lap, and with a startled flick of its tail, sent the teacup tumbling. The porcelain shattered. The hot tea spread like a dark stain across the worn rug. Mira, standing by the returns cart, felt a cold dread wash over her that had nothing to do with the spilled drink. That evening, after the last patron had departed and the heavy oak doors were locked, she returned to the box. The other pale books sat waiting, silent and unassuming. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for another. This one, too, had a date for a day in the coming week. Below it, a short paragraph described a large oak branch breaking from a tree and falling onto the pavement at the corner of Pine Street and 3rd Avenue, narrowly missing a blue sedan. For the next few days, she was on edge. Every time the wind blew, she flinched. The following Monday, the call came. A colleague who lived near the town center was breathless on the phone. "You won't believe what just happened," she said. "The big oak on Pine and 3rd just dropped a massive branch right in the middle of the road, missed a car by inches." Mira's grip on the receiver tightened until her knuckles were white. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. The quiet, ordered library suddenly felt like the calm center of a storm she couldn't see. The books were no longer peculiar artifacts. They were oracles. They were dangerous. They knew things they had no right to know. She began to read them in secret, locking herself in her office after hours. Each book detailed a small, future event. A brief power outage on Elm Street. A minor fender bender at the town's busiest intersection. The unexpected closure of the local bakery due to a burst pipe. Each prediction came to pass, exactly as written. The books became a source of terrible fascination. She tried to stop, to put them away, to burn them even. But the pull was too strong. The need to know, to see if they would be right again, was an addiction. Fear was now her constant companion, a cold shadow that followed her down the silent library corridors. The fear began to change shape. It grew from a generalized dread into something sharp and personal. There was only one book left. It was different from the others. Its cover was a deep, matte black that seemed to drink the light. On its front, embossed in stark white letters, was a title. The title was The Librarian's Death. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic, trapped bird. This was not a book about a stranger. This was a book about her. She wanted to throw it. She wanted to run from the room. She wanted to pretend she had never seen it. But her body would not obey. Her hands, moving as if controlled by an outside force, opened the black cover. The first page was stark. It had today's date, October 11th, 2025, and beneath it, the first line was her name. Mira Lyle works at the town library. She read on, her breath catching in her throat. The book was not predicting the future. It was narrating her present. Page by page, it described her day with unnerving accuracy. She opens a box from an old donor. She finds a series of strange, pale books. She grows afraid. Mira slammed the book shut, a choked gasp escaping her lips. The sound echoed in the cavernous silence. She shoved it deep into a desk drawer and locked it, the metallic click unnaturally loud. She told herself it was a hoax, but she knew, with a cold, heavy certainty, that it was not. The drawer seemed to hum with a malevolent energy. She fled the library, not even bothering to turn off all the lights, running into the wind and the rain, her footsteps echoing on the wet pavement. She felt eyes on her back the entire way home. Sleep offered no escape. Her dreams were filled with turning pages, the scratching sound of a pen on paper, a clock with no hands, spinning wildly, a long hallway leading to a door she must not open. She woke up tangled in her sheets, her heart pounding. The words from the book seared into her mind. Returning to the library felt like walking toward her own execution. The familiar scent of old books now smelled of decay. The silence felt heavy. The silence felt oppressive. The silence felt like waiting. She walked directly to her desk, her movements stiff and robotic. She had to see. She had to know. She pulled the key from her pocket, her fingers fumbling with the small, cold piece of metal. She inserted it into the desk drawer lock. It wouldn't turn. Panic flared hot in her chest. She had locked it herself. She was sure of it. She jiggled the key, her breath coming in short, sharp bursts. With a grating screech, the lock gave way. She pulled the drawer open. The black book lay on top, exactly where she had left it. Something was wrong. The white letters of the title seemed brighter now, almost glowing in the gloom. With a sense of inevitable doom, she lifted the book. It felt warm to the touch. It fell open in her hands, pages flipping rapidly on their own. A dry, whispering sound. The hair on her arms stood on end. They stopped on a new page, one that hadn't been there before. The ink glistened, wet and black, as if the words were still bleeding. A new sentence formed itself. Letter by letter, it wrote. She returns to the library. She opens the drawer. She picks up the book. The book was writing about her, right now. Mira cried out and dropped it on the desk. It landed with a soft, final thud. She backed away, hands pressed to her mouth. This was impossible. This was madness. She had to get out. She turned to run. A sudden, icy wind swept through the sealed room. The lights overhead flickered once. They flickered twice. Then they buzzed erratically. The old grandfather clock fell silent. The book lay open on her desk. Another line was appearing, ink pooling thickly. It read, "She tries to run. The lights go out." And then, darkness. A complete and total absence of light. It was a physical thing, a heavy velvet blanket that smothered all sight and sound. Mira froze. Her scream caught in her throat. She reached out, her hands finding nothing but empty, cold air. The emergency lights, which should have flickered on instantly, remained dark. The entire building was plunged into a tomb-like silence, broken only by the frantic, ragged sound of her own breathing. Then she heard it. A soft, scratching noise. The sound of paper sliding against paper. The book. It was turning its own pages in the dark. It was the only thing moving in the entire world. Her phone was dead in her pocket. The doors, she knew without trying, would be locked. A whisper, thin and dry like autumn leaves skittering across pavement, brushed against her ear. It was not a human voice. It was the voice of dust and forgotten things. It said one thing: read the last page.